Evening settles like silk over tiled roofs, and the Kamo River begins to glow. Thousands of paper lanterns float downstream, each trembling in its own reflection. The air tells another story, a heavy, unfamiliar scent, a mixture of fish, oil, and lotus resin, sweet and rancid in equal measure. This is the smell of homecoming. Every year, during the festival of Obon, the people of Kyoto prepare for their dead to return. They light the path with fire, and they feed that fire with rot. The odor is not an accident. It is the signal the spirits recognize. Clean air, they say, confuses the ancestors. Only the scent of decay reminds them where they came from. The city accepts it. For 3 nights the streets reek of devotion. The living endure the stench as offering, knowing that every flame costs something to burn. Light, after all, is never pure. It always consumes. In a small temple workshop behind Kenninji, monks gather around clay jars. They are preparing oil for the lanterns of Uraboni, the night of returning light. The recipe is not written down, but passed in whispers. Dried sardines crushed with rice bran, lotus resin, and a few drops of sake. The mixture ferments for weeks until it smells faintly of sea and honey. The monks call it Gyotoro no Kokoro, the heart of the fish lamp. When the jars are opened, the air turns thick. The novices wrinkle their noses. The older monks smile. One says, "If it disgusts you, you are still clinging to form." They ladle the brownish oil into bamboo flasks, blessing each with a single chant. By nightfall, the temple's courtyards will flicker with hundreds of lamps, and the odor will spread through the city like weather. The logic is simple, profound, and unsettling. The Buddha taught that all beings share the same nature, even the spoiled and the ugly. To light a lamp with what repels you is to practice compassion without preference. You honor decay by letting it guide you toward clarity. As the monks light the first lanterns, the flames tremble blue at their edges. Insects swarm, drawn by the scent. The air becomes alive with buzzing and smoke. When the wind passes, the flames bow and recover, each one a sermon in motion. Travelers record that Kyoto at Obon smelled like the belly of a fish and the heart of a flower. The paradox was intentional. Disgust transformed into illumination. The temples believed that every flicker was a moment of enlightenment, brief, pungent, and pure. For those who watched from the riverbanks, the sight was unforgettable. The lamps shimmered like stars fallen into the Kamo, drifting toward darkness, carrying prayers written on rice paper. The smell lingered long after the flames vanished, proof that even the foul could leave beauty behind. Kyoto had grown quieter, poorer, but Obon remained the city's heartbeat. As dusk fell, families lined the banks of the Kamo and Katsura Rivers. Children carried lanterns painted with chrysanthemums. Elders whispered names into the current. The air pulsed with heat and odor, an invisible bridge between the living and the lost. At the head of the procession, temple monks released the first lamps. Each floated a few feet, spun gently, and joined the flow. Behind them came hundreds, then thousands. From above, the river looked like a vein of fire winding through the city's dark body. The smell thickened, fish oil mixed with rain and human breath. Some covered their faces, others inhaled deeply. "This is the scent they will follow," an old woman murmured. She had lost her husband that spring, and believed his spirit could find her only by smell. Writers of the late Edo period described this ritual with wonder and discomfort. One diarist, the poet Ishiki Gensai, wrote, "The river burns with light that stinks of mercy." It was both grotesque and gentle, a nation refusing to separate purity from the natural order of rot. The floating lanterns were called Toro Nagashi, lamps that let go. Each was a body in miniature, paper for skin, bamboo for bones, oil for blood. When the flame died, The spirit was free to return. By midnight, only the faintest glow remained downstream. The smell hung heavy over the water, turning cool with dew. Families bowed, touched the earth, and went home. The monks stayed, collecting fragments of paper that had washed ashore. They dried them under the temple eaves, saving the ashes to mix into next year's lanterns. One life feeding the next, the people believed that as long as the lamps were lit, the boundary between worlds stayed soft. The air shimmered, full of presences too light to see. Every breeze carried a whisper of fish and lotus, the strange perfume of belonging. Behind the Kiyomizu slopes, where the city's roofs fade into forest, stands a narrow street once known as the Lampmaker's Alley. By day it smelled of glue, soot, and mulberry bark. By night it smelled of rot and river. Here, families made the lanterns that carried Kyoto's souls downstream. Each lamp began with bamboo ribs, bent over steam to form a frame no larger than a child's head. Sheets of washi paper were brushed with fish oil to strengthen them, giving the lanterns their faint translucent sheen. The oil also made them burn slowly, so the light would last long enough to reach the city's edge. The workers said the trick was in the balance. Too much oil, and the lamp would drown in its own fuel. Too little, and it would die before the ancestors arrived. The lamp makers understood what the monks only preached. Endurance has a scent. The longer the paper burned, the sweeter it smelled. The air in the workshops shimmered with candle smoke and sweat, and the walls glowed amber from years of handling oil. One master craftsman, Hirota Denbai, called his shop the House of Lamps that Remembered. At the height of summer, his apprentices painted each lantern with a single line of calligraphy, a family name, a wish, or a poem. Some simply wrote, "Welcome home." The letters darkened when the oil seeped through the paper, becoming halos of ink. As the light shone, the names dissolved, vanishing just as they were meant to. Visitors described Kyoto's Lampmaker's Alley as both enchanting and unbearable. The smell of decay clung to their clothes for days, yet the sight of those small, trembling flames stayed longer still. It was the city's paradox embodied in craft, art made from discomfort, beauty built from what would otherwise be thrown away. When asked why they still used the foul oil when cleaner ones existed, Denbai replied simply, "Because the dead remember the smell." When the Meiji Restoration arrived, it brought not only factories and railways, but soap and law. The new government declared the Obon oils unhygienic, a public nuisance. Officials ordered temples to use refined whale oil or kerosene. The old recipes were labeled unsanitary remnants of superstition. In the new Japan, purity meant sterility. To smell of decay was to smell of ignorance. The market stopped selling fermented oil. The Lampmaker's Alley emptied. Within a generation, Kyoto's summers became quieter, sweeter, and strangely hollow. Elders complained that the spirits no longer found their way. "The lanterns are bright," one monk wrote in 1885, "but they no longer have scent. The road home has gone cold." Some temples resisted. In the outskirts of Higashiyama, monks mixed small batches of the forbidden oil, burning it behind closed gates. The smell drifted through the night like memory refusing to fade. It was said that those who caught the faint odor of fish and lotus in late summer would be blessed, for it meant an ancestor had found their path again. By the early 1900s, the practice had nearly vanished. The night of returning light survived only as poetry. Kyoto's clean air became its own kind of loss, a perfection that forgot where it came from. On today, every August, the Obon lanterns still float down the Kamo River. Their light is electric now, their oil synthetic, their smell almost nothing. Tourists watch from bridges, filming with phones, mistaking silence for reverence. Yet in one small temple north of Gon, the old ritual endures. At dusk, the head monk opens a sealed wooden chest. Inside are glass jars labeled in faded ink, fish oil, lotus resin, rice bran, sake. The mixture has been passed down for 2 centuries, never written, always whispered. The monks pour it carefully into clay bowls and light the wicks. The first breath of smoke is sharp, earthy, almost unbearable. Then slowly, sweetness emerges, the smell of rot turning into warmth. A few elders come to watch. They close their eyes and smile. One says softly, "I remember this. My grandmother said it smelled like love." The lamps flicker, the air thickens, and for a moment, Kyoto feels ancient again. Fireflies drift above the river, confused by the sudden light. The monk bows to the water, murmuring the same line used by his predecessors. "For them to find us, we must burn what lives." The flames last less than an hour, but the scent lingers through the night. When the wind rises, it carries the odor toward the city. Faint and unmistakable. The echo of an age when people understood that devotion sometimes stinks. All light is hunger. The lamp consumes what decays. The flame depends on the body of the world. In Kyoto's night of returning light, the people accepted this with gratitude. Their lanterns were not meant to be clean or eternal. They were meant to be honest. To feed on rot was to admit that beauty cannot exist apart from what sustains it. Modernity taught us to fear that truth. We built a world that smells of nothing and called it pure. But somewhere in the alleys of the old city, a jar still ferments. A monk still stirs oil that smells of fish and flowers, preparing to light the way for the unseen. When the lanterns rise again, the river mirrors their glow. Thousands of trembling suns made from what the living could not bear to touch. The air thickens, shimmering with heat and memory. The city holds its breath, and in that moment, you understand what Kyoto has always known, that the soul does not follow light. It follows the scent of those who loved enough to burn.